Hello, this is Matt with Thrive University, and today we have Sylvia and Jordan from McKinley Research Group that are joining us to do some training with our students about surveying and collecting data from various students so that we make sure that our program is as effective as possible. So I'm just going to turn it over now to Sylvia to run this training.
Thanks, Matt. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and hope that I do it correctly. All right, is everyone seeing that? Cool. Thanks so much. And you guys can feel free to interrupt me at any time if you need me to pause. Our discussion today is kind of a learning opportunity. We'll share some information and also have plenty of time to talk together. We definitely want to hear from everyone in the room. So we kind of already did introductions, which is wonderful. Oops, there we go. Which is wonderful, but I would love to hear from Allison and Anavrin, just kind of what drew you to Thrive and drew you into working with this group. Allison, if you want to share first.
Well, so I first applied for Thrive back in November of last year through like the first internship. And then I joined the varsity team, which is essentially what we made of our street team members right now, social media team members, and some other people through the community like to come and just like bounce off ideas for events and stuff. So I started there, and then in March, I was hired to manage the creatives team, and I did that all the way up until summer, where I kind of transitioned into working with Madeline, assisting with her in the AVA chattos and RSVPs for events and stuff.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
And Avocado, by the way, is our texting platform, Sylvia.
Okay, cool. Anavrin?
And Navrin, we're having a really hard time hearing you. Are you able to get closer to your mic?
That's what she just said, is that she's in her car and she can't.
Gotcha.
Okay. We can hold off then on hearing.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Oh, we can.
Perfect.
It started out when I was just going to Thrive events with my brother, and I felt a strong connection with it when I joined the meeting and I heard the actual reasons behind Thrive. I felt connected, and I wanted more of my friends to join and more kids I knew in the Valley who didn't have opportunities to have fun because it costs so much money. So I wanted to share so I could have more friends and share it to the community.
That's awesome.
Did you hear me?
Thank you guys for your, yes, we can hear you. That's great.
Okay, sorry, it's just really hard.
No, you're good. Thank you guys so much for sharing some really strong reasons for coming to join Thrive and to being a part of this work. So I think we briefly mentioned that McKinley Research Group works with Thrive Matsu and has supported the organization in the past in a number of different ways, and one of them is through evaluation. And we're here today to learn more about evaluation together through a couple different discussions. I think you heard Matt say that we're going to reschedule some of them, but we'll have two more after this one today. And to start, we wanted to hear from you guys. We said evaluation a couple different times, but we wanted to hear from folks in the room. What does evaluation mean to you? And there's no right or wrong answer. We're just looking for any thoughts or words or phrases that come to mind when you hear evaluation. And feel free to just blurt them out loud or drop in the chat.
Sylvia, is this question for the students? Or is it
It
kind of for
is, but
everybody?
anyone
Just
can
wanted to
hop
check.
in. Anyone can hop in since there's just a few of us here. I know it feels like there's a lot of pressure if there's just 2 folks.
Well, I'll jump in. When I think of evaluation, I think of, I guess, a couple different scenarios come to mind as like when you plan to do something, or if you have a goal. Oh, my internet is saying unstable, so hopefully I'm coming through okay. If you're working on something and you have a goal for yourself, or you expect it to accomplish it by a certain time or in a certain way, evaluation comes to mind of a way to just kind of reflect on how everything went. And if you know, did you kind of do the things that you outlined for yourself, kind of the steps you thought you should take to reach that goal or to accomplish something, you know, planning a friend's birthday party or something like that. And then sometimes I think you can kind of evaluate after the fact, like you weren't thinking necessarily ahead of time of all the steps to take to do something, or maybe you wasn't oriented around like a goal or something like that. But maybe something happens, you know, you're talking to somebody, you see a friend, and you know, you haven't seen in a while, or you know, you're running some errands, you're trying to do something, and then you stop later and think about how it went. You know, did I set out to do what I meant to do? And you know, should I have adjusted somehow or done something differently, or, you know, to celebrate, hey, that went really well, and gosh, that went even better than I thought, you know. Those are the things that come to mind for me for evaluation.
Thanks, Stephanie.
I have to agree with Stephanie on that. You're essentially like making judgments when you're evaluating judgments. I'm doing this assignment in class where I have to take feedback and change my goals. And so I'm basically like evaluating all of that I've already taken from my goals, and then using it to make something better, and it's like improving it.
These are great examples. Did anyone else have anything they want to share about what evaluation means to them?
Take stock in where you're at and like where you can move forward, like the careful process before you move forward.
Yeah, careful process. That's a great phrase. And taking stock.
We had a discussion yesterday about U360's data, and we just talked to the students about how when you're working downstream, you can, and this may be jumping ahead a little bit, but when you're working downstream, you can, you know, count the people that you're helping. But when you're working upstream, you have to really depend on data to make sure you're being effective with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm struggling with my screen share here for just a second. I wanted you guys to be able to see what I was typing, but it wasn't coming up. So we'll do this for you. Matt, can you share what you said about U360 again? Oh, you're on mute.
We were sharing yesterday, Tyler Healy shared the survey data from U360. And we just talked to the students about the difference between, you know, when you're working downstream, you can count how effective you are based on the results you're getting in the moment. But when you're working upstream, you have to really depend on data to tell you whether you're being effective, you know, for things not happening. You know, especially if you're working to prevent things, you have to depend on the data to make sure you're being effective.
Yeah, great. Well, it sounds like we have many different evaluators in the room in different ways. And some of you already referenced some things already, but what kinds of things do you evaluate in your life? Hi, Amber.
I personally take note of where I'm at in my education and what I need. It's like a checklist for what I need to proceed to college. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What about others? What other kinds of things do you evaluate? Does anyone write Yelp reviews or food reviews for businesses?
My family and I did a few summers ago. Every place we ate at, we would do Yelp reviews for.
Yeah. What kinds of things were you looking out for? Like, were you thinking about ambiance or just taste of the
We were
food
thinking
or
of,
service?
like, so yeah, the service, like customer service, and then the quality of the food is really
Mm-hmm.
we were looking at.
I evaluate like how much water I drink, or did I work out this week, you know, that sort of thing, how well I was sleeping, those types of things. For me, it seems to be more like new things. I guess I don't, or maybe evaluations kind of, I'm reflecting on more things throughout, but like it doesn't come up as often unless I'm being like really conscious about it. But things like things have come up recently, like planning. I used to planning a friend's party earlier, things like that. Like if it's like an event or something, a party. I think there's a natural tendency to think, oh, did that go well, or could I have done something better? Or you kind of reflect on what did people really enjoy, you know, either a food or playing games and that sort of thing.
So right now I'm evaluating whether I would like another fish tank. I used to have one in high school and I actually had a lot of them. And this time of year, I have plenty of time to take care of it. During the summer, I don't have any time to take care of it. So I'm just afraid the fish are gonna all die. So I'm just evaluating whether I want to take the plunge right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll throw in another one that just popped into my head too, is like, depending on the timing of the month or whatever, I sometimes have to evaluate, like, can I go shopping or can I go get something that I've been kind of keeping an eye on, and have to evaluate my budget and how much money I have.
Agree with that too, especially with winter. You got to evaluate how, oh, the roads are pretty snowy. Do I really need to go to the store and get the pack of soda for the party, or can we just do it with what we got here?
These are great examples. Yeah, lots. We're making thousands of decisions every day and processing so much information that consciously, unconsciously, yeah. And you can see these things really vary, like something like your education. That's really huge to be evaluating. And, you know, maybe something like how much water you're drinking, of course, is super important, but, you know, just different scales of things that we're evaluating. So we wanted to start off thinking about this and thinking that way, because there are, evaluation can mean different things to different people. And something that's really interesting is if you go to the American Evaluation Association website, which is the professional association for evaluators, if you click around, you'll notice that they really, really resist giving a definition for evaluation. And that's because it can mean different things to different people, depending on their background, their education, their interests. And one of the things they do, actually, instead of just defining it, is they have like a series of YouTube videos from different evaluation professionals that kind of describe in their own words what it is. And I actually had this really great experience of going to the evaluation conference a couple years ago. And one thing that always makes me seize up when people ask me, what do I do for a living? Is how do I describe evaluation? And it was so nice to be in a room full of a couple thousand people that all knew what it was. So you guys are ahead of the curve on having some definitions kind of at your back. It's great. And then you heard me talk about professional evaluators, but those aren't the only types of evaluators. Pretty much anyone can be an evaluator. You don't have to be, strictly a professional with some sort of training or background in it. And the process that we're going to go in together is called participatory evaluation, which a bunch of people come together and they're developing the knowledge themselves and looking into things themselves and asking questions themselves so that they can do something like how Anavrin talked about being just really attracted to the work of Thrive and being attracted to the mission. So thinking about how you can use some information and data that's out there to help further that work. And kind of at its core, at its most simple, for participatory evaluation, a group of people is coming together, trying to figure out what they want to accomplish, and then look at how well they're doing and how they might improve on what they're doing. And I've got up on the screen here a slide about evaluation roles that young people might play in evaluation. And it goes from a spectrum of really being youth-led on the right to adult-led on the left. And so on one end of the spectrum for evaluation, youth are the subjects of the evaluation. Adults are taking the lead and they're kind of the ones studying youth and seeing what youth are doing. Does anyone have any examples or an experience of where you've been kind of underneath the microscope and looked at? Has anyone ever had to take a survey?
I distinctly remember taking the YRBS surveys back when I was in high school. When I was a youth, I'm no longer a youth.
I think the federal government defines youth until you're like 35, so we're still good. Yeah, so it's often that you're kind of being looked at and analyzed, starting really young. I mean, there are like medical evaluations for babies, and even before kids start kindergarten, they do evaluations of them to see kind of where they're at developmentally, and all those things are normal and have their place. But it's just one aspect of evaluation. And then on the other end is where young people can really take the lead, and adults may or may not be involved in the process. And then there's pieces in the middle where adults are involved and maybe youth are able to provide some feedback, but they don't have like a ton of control over the process. Another, which is where we are kind of today with this group, and we'll be going forward on this project together, is adults initiate the process. So like what Thrive is doing, kind of initiating this youth participatory evaluation process. And then young people are involved in gathering information for the project and really have a lot of say on the direction of the project and how it's going to go and what's going to be evaluated. Can anyone think of any reasons why youth should participate in community evaluation efforts?
It's a good way to get research out there and for people to know how to make positive changes and impacts for the community.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I believe Destiny, you also joined since I last took a pause to take stock of who's in the room, and Amber. And I want to let you know you're free to jump in at any time and share anything you like. Does anyone else have any reasons why you should participate in evaluation efforts in the community?
So people can like get to know you better.
Yeah, that's a really great one. It's a great platform for youth to share their perspective and to be heard in the community and be understood. Well, one important thing in kind of in this process is it's kind of your right. You guys have a right as young people to have your voices be heard and to have influence in the community. You know, there aren't always clear avenues for doing that. And, you know, that's one of those great things about Thrive is that there are avenues through Thrive to participate and have shape and influence in the community. And an evaluation is another way, another avenue in which you have a right and to access. So I'm going to read a
Real quick,
scenario.
Sylvia.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just between what
Okay.
Allison was saying about making an impact, and then you're saying, you know, being heard and having influence. It really made me think about many years ago now. I guess it's probably been about 8 years ago or so. Several students got together and did a service learning project, but they were picking up trash and doing different things. And then it really came about, like the kids started talking about, wow, we really need to be recycling, and we should have recycling in schools, and we should have more opportunities to do that. And there was discussions about the climate and everything and just the importance of it all. But you know, that led to the schools, and I think they went to the school board and everything, but it led to the schools having you know, just recycling at every school, and really change things because young people said it was important, and they, you know, they went out and saw, you know, what was happening in the community and said this should change, and people listened and then implemented what they said, which was really cool, you know, and very important too.
Yeah, that's a great real world example of kind of asking questions like, why don't we have recycling at school, and can we make that happen, and turning that into action. So I'm going to read, I'm going to pull up a scenario on the screen, and then I'm also going to read it out loud. And it's the type of scenario that's pretty common and happens in communities all the time. So a community organization gave a grant to a youth group for an intergenerational summer program to involve young people and senior citizens in community gardening. Young people wanted to work with seniors to plant gardens in a park that was popular with young and old. The program proposed to involve at least 15 young people and 10 senior citizens in activities that would strengthen intergenerational relationships, serve the community in a meaningful way, and improve the environment. Funds were provided for transportation from senior centers, gardening equipment, and other materials. So thinking about this program that popped up because of a youth group's interest and an organization funding it, what are some reasons that you could think of to maybe evaluate that program?
Well, Sylvia, I'll hop in. I think that, you know, if the program ends up like being like talked about as really successful, I would want to know, like, what are the reasons why it's so successful or why it's doing well. And I would want to, you know, ask some questions like, you know, maybe ask some people in the program, you know, what do you think is going really well and why do you think it's going well, and kind of get down into, you know, what is going well with the program. Or the opposite would be true if it was going really terribly. But hopefully, I'm assuming in this scenario, it's going well.
Yeah, it helps generate some lessons learned and think about, okay, if this works doing, you know, community gardening, how can we take lessons learned to make something else go really well? What about if you funded the program, if you gave out the money? Is there any reason in particular you would want to evaluate it?
Maybe if it didn't go well, you would see to put your money towards something else or to start new or something that would produce more results that were beneficial to the community.
Yeah, that's great. So community organizations, often have limited funding, and so they want to fund things that they know are effective. And it could be that they continue to fund the community garden, but they have some ideas for ways it could improve or be better. Or maybe if there was another program idea that had demonstrated better results, maybe they would put more investment towards that area. Some other reasons maybe to evaluate it would be to make sure, maybe the funds, the original plan was to have 15 young people and 10 senior citizens. Well, maybe you could find out that actually 30 people wanted to be involved in the program or even more. So kind of helping you understand interest in the community about it. Maybe something you could evaluate, you could find out that, say there were these funds provided for transportation. Well, you could find out, well, actually the community garden was across the street from the senior center. And so people were just walking across the street and didn't need to secure a van or something like that. Just some ideas off the top of my head. Thinking more specifically about what could be evaluated in that program or in other programs or initiatives as well, we'll talk about two different things. So one is the activities. These are really commonly evaluated, and they're what people actually do to accomplish their purposes. So they can be documented by their number, frequency, or duration. I'm thinking of Stephanie's example about drinking water. If you want to evaluate, am I meeting my water drinking goals, you would, count how many glasses or ounces of water that you drink during the day. The other thing is outcomes, the effects or impacts which result from project activities. Right now, as Matt's evaluating whether or not he wants to get a fish tank, the outcome will be, did he get a fish tank? Yes or no? And do the fish live or die? Yes or no? That would be another outcome to monitor to see if he did have enough time to take care of them. Back to that program scenario, what are some things that you could count? What are some activities that you could count or evaluate?
Thrive has this survey, so we can figure out what activities that the people in our community want to do. So when we take those surveys, we take those numbers and then we base the activities around those numbers. So like we have a lot of people signed up for swimming, so we do swimming pretty much every month.
That's great. Yeah. So evaluating interest and then aligning what you're actually offering to what the interest is. You wouldn't want to offer swimming if 0 people said they were interested. Thinking about this garden scenario, what activities could you count, or what things could you count? I think the easiest one is, how many people show up. You could, how many times the group met, maybe over that they came together and worked together. You could count how many gardens that they were able to work on, or plant gardens in a park. That's kind of vague, but maybe you want to know how many
much work is
plants
done.
people planted. how much work is done. Yeah. And then as far as outcomes, there might be some things that are really simple to observe, like, you know, like how much work is done, how much got planted. Other things might be, you know, part of this is bringing together young people and older senior citizens together, kind of talking to young people and senior citizens and learning what the groups learned about each other, the kinds of relationships they had. Was it meaningful to them? In what ways was it meaningful? Do they feel like they made a difference in the park or the community? You could talk to other people in the community and say, do you appreciate, you know, the work that was done, and learn if maybe they go to the park more now because it has more attractive vegetation, things like that. So I wanted to break out into